welcome to Sunday Nights with Faye Seidler. It's Sunday night. It's your girl Faye. We are talking about news like we always do in North Dakota on the show Sunday night. That's the whole thing. That's what we do. Um, we are a little bit late coming on tonight. Just got very behind this week with different kind of illnesses and stress and all that fun stuff. But we're here doing the show. We did it. The show goes on. Um, I want to wish everyone a happy Pride for those who were able to go to all the events this weekend and celebrate. A special shout out to the Red River Rainbow Seniors for being the Pride Marshal this year. I'll probably do some more reporting on that next week once we have more stories that come in that I can talk about. But moving into the stories that we have for this week, I want everyone to know that coming up August 17th, next Saturday, there is going to be a gender justice benefit happening at the aquarium at 6 p.m. This is a benefit that will be going not just to gender justice, but I believe also to Transportation North Dakota, to Parachico, and to YouthWorks. It's fundraising for all these great causes, and it features a lineup of artists and musicians, a lot of which are part of the queer community, to celebrate and raise money for a ton of good causes. So that's happening this coming Saturday at the aquarium. Other events that are occurring is we have a wellness fair that will be put on by the Foundation for Healthy North Dakota. It is happening next month, September 7th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is a family-friendly event to basically talk about general wellness and health in a very engaging way for families and kids. In other events, we have Hope Cafe. This is put on by the Suicide Prevention Coalition of North Dakota. This will happen August 13th, this Tuesday. And this is something that is every other month they put on a story, often around suicide prevention, education, topics, or stories. This one's about an individual who experienced bipolar disorder in high school in the ways that impacted their life, led to different things like suicide attempts, and how they ultimately overcame it. That's a free online event you can register for, happening again this Tuesday. Moving into a section I'm going to call OPE in North Dakota, though that's a little too cute for the awful stories that I'm covering. But just this week, a lot of terrible things we're talking about. There is a deep dive story into Christian nationalism from the News Co-op. This is an investigative journalistic organization that looks at generally the topic of Christian nationalism, not in a totally negative way, but kind of how North Dakotans are reacting to that, and how, even though this is a fairly extreme ideology that we're looking at, and that if you put a survey to North Dakotans, like a lot of them kind of identify with some of these ideological values, at the end of the day, a lot of people are not Christian nationalists. It's a minority position to have, and it deconstructs that, and I think a very honest and compelling way. So there's a story on that you can follow that comes out from the News Co-op. There's also a story featuring a expose of a local quote-unquote cult within North Dakota. I think that word cult is still alleged. I don't know where we are on that one, but I believe it is in a... I can't do this justice in a quick synopsis, but it appears that the heart of the operation was in Niche, North Dakota for quite some time. The journalist C.S. Hagan, who's done just a lot of fantastic reporting over the years, covers it in detail and will be covering it in even more detail. It's a multi-fact, it's like a lot of pieces to this story. So if you want to learn more about that, please check it out. There's been a lot of commentary on it with people's experiences, not just with that organization, but other cult-like experiences across the state. C.S. Hagan even identifies as someone who experienced that when they were a child. In unfortunate news, domestic violence has been increasing in North Dakota, and the funding for that has been plummeting nationally, so we're getting less resources. It looks like currently our folks working with domestic violence, reducing that, such as our CAWS cause, is going to be looking for more funding from our local government, since we are not getting it from federal government. Domestic abuse is a pervasive problem happening all across North Dakota in ways that we often don't see. It tends to be invisible, or it tends to be something that it's hard for survivors of sexual assault or victimization to come forward because of a lot of different power dynamics. It's a horrific thing, and it looks like a lot of the instability we have across our state is resulting in higher instances of this occurring. Speaking of sexual violence, Ray Halmberg, a former state lawmaker, was pled guilty to having sex with children and traveling to have sex with children. I have a ton of different links covering the story from different angles, but it's horrific through and through. My understanding is they were involved as a education professional before becoming a lawmaker, and it's scary to think about how much access they've had to kids throughout their life and what they might have done with that. More details will emerge about this, but it's important to understand that this isn't as rare as we would like. I've been doing a lot of work this year with trainings on protecting youth from sexual violence or being more aware of it. And what we have is about 1 in 10 youth in North Dakota is likely to experience some kind of sexual violence, and it's most likely to be committed by a family member or a adult that has access to that family, like an uncle, aunt, someone someone who has access to a kid. It's not very likely to be just a stranger. So there are trainings around that if you're interested in being more involved. That's really where I want to take the story because it's so awful, but there are ways to make sure we can keep kids safer, and I think my work is largely keeping LG plus youth safe. Our LG plus youth have a higher instances of sexual violence due to a lot of the ways that they are ostracized and minoritized within our communities, but I want all kids to be safe. Like, that is always my like real top goal, and I just hate this. I hate everything about this story and that it happened and that it happens way more than we ever want. Moving into a segment for trans news, racism and transphobia often intersect. There is a story covering one of the incidents with the boxer, Olympic boxer. I did a lot of this last week or 2 weeks ago, so I don't want to do too much more. But often there is policing of bodies, especially women's bodies, especially women of color's bodies, that you can like see a clear trend. So it's just looking at the ways that we police bodies in a more intentional way. If you want to do more digging on that, there's a story you can look into. The American Bar Association is defending trans medical care, and I think it's just a preview that our law entities, much like our medical entities and social work entities, are all just like professionals that are saying we need to stop these really politically motivated ideological attacks on trans folks because they are just people and they do deserve human rights. Like, that's a thing that they should have access to, and it's not a zero-sum game between trans individuals having rights and cis people not. Right now it's just trans individuals are discriminatorily excluded. It is okay to dislike trans people, but you can't use your dislike and uncomfort to ban them from your spaces. Like, trans folks are probably as uncomfortable in spaces and bathrooms with anti-trans bigots as the anti-trans bigots are. We have to share those spaces though. So it's cool that the American Bar Association is putting more work on this. It's not like a definitive, they are making the big bold statements, but they're making those directions and movements. You can look into it. There's also been local coverage on Trans Youth Emergency Project. I talked about this a couple weeks ago. This is a project looking to expand access to medical care for trans youth by giving them options out of state or microgrants to help access medically appropriate care. It's a fantastic initiative and cause. It is something that is life-saving, and I don't know, I work in the medical field. Like, I I'm always like at a loss for words because I want to communicate this isn't politics, this isn't opinion. Like, kids need access to this care or there are lethal consequences. And it's a good thing that we are helping to have harm reductive approaches for this population. It doesn't always like hold up with North Dakota opinion with stigma and prejudice, but like, I don't know, that's just what the science says. So yeah, it's good that they're here. In community news, we talked about a lot of terrible things. Let's talk about a good thing. Local Devil's Lake man saves a drowning woman. There's not much more to the story. It's just a really cool story of someone that rose to the call. I talked about the story on social media, but one of the things I really like about it is I think when we really like tear down a lot of these arbitrary divides that we have, like, we care about each other, we care about our community, and we care about common cause for like family and feeding kids. And if someone is in a car accident, we maybe don't worry about what side they vote for, what their opinions are, because maybe we just need to save their life. That's where I want us to move into. I don't have enemies that I'm like, oh, I hope bad things happen to them. I want us to be all successful and thrive in some way. During the Pride events, there's a lot of comments are like, well, why aren't we celebrating veterans instead? And I'm like, well, what about queer veterans? They need some space too, right? And it's not an either or thing. It's not like we all get a slice of pie and then the whole cake's gone. That's a mixed metaphor. But we can all celebrate each other. I think a lot of times folks with strong religious beliefs tend to be some of the folks that may be more anti-trans, not always big brushes there, but uh, we can celebrate your strong religious beliefs. That can be a really cool thing and a motivating factor in someone's life that's worthy of celebration. Queer people celebrating doesn't take that away. And I think that we can all like look at what do we find joy in. And I think if we lead the conversation and not what we hate or dislike, but what we do love, like that is a much better conversation in terms of healing and hope. That's my long-winded story on the story about a Devil's Lake man saving a woman from a car crash into a lake that was drowning. In other good news, Strengthen North Dakota continues to inspire. Strengthen North Dakota is a nonprofit that helps other nonprofits be successful. They get a lot of funding to distribute to community causes, and they have a strong root in believing in grassroots community solutions to community problems. They rose and are over the course of the time that they've been doing this, they've risen over $4 million. Just recently, with this grant cycle, they have given money to the Great Plains Food Bank, Lake Regional Ambulance Services, North Dakota Women's Business Association, and the Turtle Mountain Band and Chippewa Indians. Tons of money, like hundreds of thousands of dollars to these organizations doing great causes. So I just want to highlight that. As much as we feel like there is struggle everywhere, there is hope everywhere too. And I want people to know that because I am not just a cosplay journalist. I am also a hope advocate and suicide prevention advocate. Other things is the Red River Rainbow Seniors has swag. They are grand marshals and they deserve celebration, and you should wear their merchandise. Yeah, I have it right here. I've been wearing this like because it got really cold for no reason in Fargo. Climate change is still real, but like, here's the thing. Um, So Red River Rainbow Seniors. It was really comfortable, and I wore it, and they have good swag. So buy it. Yeah, I promote good. And then finally for free swag, the 988 has a bunch of free swag. So you can get posters and flyers for our emergency services for 988. 988 is who you can call for suicide prevention. They are answered by First Link and they are phenomenal. I have nothing but trust in them, in their team, and their amazing passion and work that they do all of the time. So that is great. That's what I have for our opening news. I think it probably went for like 200 hours, but like, um, I am against the gun on the show, and I've been having a really tough week in terms of some of my health issues. So I'm doing my best, and I'm proud that I'm able to get something out here, uh, and that every week I move us forward in whatever small way that whatever my work does. So thank you for joining me for the intro section. My next two sections are going to be about saving our PFLAG in Grand Forks, and then a longer story about homelessness and the ways that we talk about that in reporting. I tried to make these episodes 10 minutes and now they're like ballooning into 20, but my compromise is I break them up so you can enjoy them however you want. If you don't like this opening news, that's fine. If you want to just get targeted news and the featured stories, I have that all in my weekly report. I have a YouTube channel, I have a podcast, so like I know I do a lot, but I really want you to like I don't want to waste your time. I want you to get what you want out of this. So I really try to put a lot of effort into that. You can read this stuff on my weekly report instead of listening to me if you don't like how I talk like without pause ever. So I don't know. I don't know. I do all that. That's good. Next section. Hurry up. Bye. For this story, I just want to talk about the PFLAG up in Grand Forks. To my knowledge, it is the only PFLAG that we have in this state. We've had other PFLAGs that have come and gone over the years. So I don't think I'm wrong. Like my job is to know this information, but I don't know. I'm not perfect. I am talking about it because right now PFLAG, the leadership of it in Grand Forks, has served their 2-year terms and they're looking for people to take over. And they're having trouble because I don't know, it's a big commitment. People don't know how to get involved. It's a tough situation. What PFLAG does is provide support for parents of LGBTQ plus youth. So it's a really great place for parents who might be struggling or need connections or support or peer support. It's a phenomenal resource. It's well supported by the national PFLAG to make sure the efforts are sustainable. Um, and I want you, if you're watching and you know people in Grand Forks, to let them know and to rise up to the call to action to try to help save the PFLAG organization because the folks that are currently leading it can't do it forever. In North Dakota, in particular, we don't have a lot of people, and we often burn out the folks willing to step up because it's like, oh, they got it handled, but we can't do that. People are afraid to get involved because they feel like imposters. They don't feel like they know what they're getting into. But that's how everyone is when they start out. The folks who started PFLAG weren't the experts of starting PFLAG. They cared and they tried. If you care and you want to try in Grand Forks to create a space that is safe for your parents to learn more about resources, for your queer youth to potentially get access to more support, then this is a way to step up into that. You don't have to be perfect, and you have the benefit of some people who have 2 years of experiences to let you know what's working. Don't think about, oh, I need to be good, or this needs to be my resume, or I need to be X, Y, or Z. If you feel like this is important and you feel like you have the time to commit, which is not a lot, 2 hours a month, maybe 5 hours if you are like more administratively the president and stuff like that, commit to it. This work is rewarding. When you do it, it is rewarding. It is difficult and stressful, but you feel like you're moving something forward and providing the space that is essential and needed. If there's not a lot to this story, I have things about like PFLAG up here and their call to action, but I just want to do my part to make sure that there is a legitimate chance that this organization can continue. In my career of doing activism in the state for over 10 years, I've seen so many organizations come to a halt. And sometimes maybe it's a good thing that they do. It's not the right time. But I don't want it to go quietly. I want it to have a chance. So please, really, if you feel like you owe me anything from the work that I do, this is a moment where I will cash in some of those chips to reach out, ask if folks can be involved, ask if people can volunteer, ask if people can ask other people. I think it's a disservice if we lose something like this. It's no fault to the folks who need to step down. They've done their time. Like, we can't expect people to do this work forever. Like, I will, but I'm an anomaly and I don't expect it of other folks. So here is my pitch. Please, please put out a call to action. Get people involved, get them motivated. I know there are people who probably want to do this and just don't know about it since we are so busy, so many things are happening, but put it out there. You don't need to be perfect, an expert, experienced in all this. You need to care. If you care, if you have that desire and passion to step up, you can learn, and there are options to learn and be successful. So, short story, but like, get involved, help, SOS, save our PFLAG in Grand Forks. That's what I got for you for this segment. Thank you. Just ending with thank you is kind of a funny way to end a story. Like, reporters don't do that. I'm not a reporter. I just cosplay one, like I keep on joking. In this story, I'm going to be talking broadly about the impacts of homelessness, the ways that we talk about and are trying to help individuals that are experiencing it, the work and coverage that we've been having over it that has been good and bad, and the fears I have for what we are going to do in the future. I am not an expert in this issue and topic. Um, I don't feel like I personally will be doing it the same justice that other people could. Um, but I am going to do the best I can to represent this in a reasonable and fair way uh, for the things that I have read, because I have been following the issues of the rising level of homelessness and disenfranchisement and wealth inequality that have been impacting uh, everyone in our larger North Dakota area, but specifically in our Fargo Moorhead metro. And it's been interesting to look at the stories, how they evolve, where they've been successful and where they haven't. The very first thing I want to say in this story is that my opinion doesn't matter. I hope that what I do is put spotlight to people's opinions who do. And the first thing I want to say is that if you care about this issue in any sort of way that has empathy and humanity and cares about individuals experiencing homelessness, follow the FM Coalition to End Homelessness, because they're the ones doing that work on the ground. They understand the issues and the struggles and the solutions that will actually work. Follow them. They have so much information with their newsletters, with efforts to end it, with conversations that you even have a event that happened at the Fargo Theater, inviting national speakers to talk about innovative solutions. So even our governor would love that. We have so much going on to try to solve this in an equitable way and have good conversations and directions and practical solutions. I have seen that time and time again that we are doing that. But I've also seen a lot of folks that don't pay attention to that. So I would say, first off, if this is something that you at all want to engage with, you should follow the FM Coalition to End Homelessness, what they say, their opinions and perspectives. It is the most important voice in this topic. That said, the other thing I want to talk about is folks who currently do this work. It is difficult work for so many reasons, and the secondary trauma and stress of trying to help folks when our systems are designed to hurt them is tough to deal with. I'm sharing a YouTube video, like, yeah, YouTube video, concrete journalism. But it's about someone who gives a message to the important work that advocates in homelessness need to maybe hear. The work you do matters, even if we can't have success stories with everyone that we try to help, to give them the agency and power they need to take the life they want back. It is a message to you to say, hey, thank you. Thank you for that work. In the course of the last couple of years, there's been a lot of stories, and something that comes to mind personally, I don't even have a graphic for this, is a time when our city council member, Dave Pipecorn, followed two, I believe, Indigenous men who were sleeping outdoors in the city to the engagement center, and then wrote a think piece about how we should shut down this engagement center because it's encouraging homelessness. That is an uneducated understanding of how any of this works, and it's not helpful. But Dave has, as far as I know, been consistent with trying to defund our downtown engagement center, which is a resource center to help create safety and equity to our population that might be experiencing homelessness. It is important to understand that experiences of homelessness are diverse. There's a lot of reasons people might experience that has nothing to do with any choice they've made in life. You can be let go from a job in a way you don't expect and you can't pay rent. What you might not understand is homelessness isn't just this like population of folks with mental health issues. Homelessness is elders who don't have enough income through Social Security to afford living places anymore. It is families, it is children, it is people who've just had a hard couple of weeks. Any one of us can be way closer to this than we ever think possible with just a lot of bad luck. When I see people talk about this, I see them often talk about the consequences of individuals who are experiencing it. And what I mean is they look at folks who are quote unquote loitering downtown or feel like they pose some risk or threat. And then we see isolated issues of crime as these broad strokes that see it's really a problem that we need to solve to keep people safe. But who are those people? I think that's always particularly interesting because it doesn't ever seem to be folks experiencing homelessness. If you feel unsafe walking downtown, how unsafe do you think it is for folks who are currently experiencing homelessness? And how come the conversation doesn't tend to be about making it safer for these individuals rather than trying to expedite the problem or, in some cases, just brutally force people out of town? A big thing that's happened recently is the Supreme Court has ruled that cities have pretty much a wide um, array of options to do what they want to eliminate their homeless problem. And I say that in kind of intentionally awful terms because it's very much that. It's posing fines on folks who don't have housing, who have maybe no income, who can't afford that, which is just one degree away from forcibly putting people into jail because they're undesirable. It's awful and cruel and terrible. And something made even worse by our current CEO of the forum deciding for some reason to weigh in on this issue. I read this story, this editorial. He talks about the danger he perceives for his kid, and his kid pointing out folks that he just presumes are on substances or mentally unwell or deranged, like casting a very interesting perspective on individuals. And what he suggests in his think piece is that we need a task force to solve this. And I think it's so weird and disconnected that he doesn't read his own paper. I've been following story after story from journalists doing cutting edge reporting on this. Like, story after story after story after story. And what I worry about is that the folks who have power and influence, that they won't care about this really nuanced, complex, careful, harm reductive work that is being done at the best of our ability to do it within our sectors of shelters, within our social workers or homeless advocates. And it's just all going to be lit on fire because of a ham-fisted tactic to just like start arresting people who are homeless. My worry, and maybe this is unfounded, maybe this isn't helpful, is that give it a couple of months and the trajectory I see is just police raids to remove these folks from town in a violent reaction to people who are suffering. That won't solve this problem. That won't solve the issues of individuals being homelessness or the consequence of it. Like, it will mask it maybe a little bit, but it will be cruel. Because at some level, there's this underlying idea that homelessness is a personal failure or a choice people are making. And time again, the think pieces and story pieces and centric pieces on this are that's not the case. A lot of folks who are experiencing this are trying to survive. They're trying to survive intersectional trauma and generational trauma and hardships and wealth inequity. And if our solution is just to punish those people or relocate them, that doesn't stop new folks from emerging into this. Well, thank you everyone for watching my show. That's all I have for today. I hope you have a good rest of your week. I hope we see you back here next week. Just want to give some thank yous to all the folks here who contributed to the show, who made it all a great time and informed us about the cool stuff they're doing. He will be my outro probably for a while until I choose to change it. You all have a good day. Bye.